She came with nothing but a small bag, a quiet face, and a secret no one could see. The bus stopped in the middle of a small town called Raigar. It was evening, the sky was orange, and the streets were half empty. No one noticed the woman when she stepped down from the old bus. She wore a plain blue sari and carried a brown bag. Her eyes looked tired, but not from travel. They looked tired from life. She didn't speak to anyone. No one came to pick her up. No one called her name. She was alone, or so everyone thought. She walked slowly through the streets, looking left and right like she had never seen this place before. But she didn't look lost. It was as if she was searching for something, or waiting for someone. Finally, she stopped in front of a small guest house. The board read, Shanti Lodge. She rang the bell. A middle-aged man opened the door. Yes? I need a room, she said softly. For how many days? I don't know. The man looked at her from top to bottom. She looked decent, not rich, not poor, just simple. He gave her a room on the first floor. That night she sat on the bed and stared at the ceiling. She didn't turn on the TV. She didn't call anyone. She just sat there in silence. At midnight, she took out an old photo from her bag. It was torn at the corner. It showed a man in army uniform holding a baby girl. She touched the photo gently and closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she didn't cry out loud, just a silent tear. The next morning, she visited the local cafe. It was small, noisy, and full of gossiping aunties and college boys. Are you new here? The cafe owner asked. Yes, she replied. You looking for work? She nodded. We need someone to help in the kitchen. Are you okay with that? Yes. Good. Start today. She said thank you and tied her hair. That's how easily she became part of the cafe. No questions, no story, just work. Days passed. People began to notice her. She never talked too much. She never smiled too wide. She came on time. She left on time, and always alone. They called her the Silent Woman. She must be hiding from her in-laws, someone said. No, she looks like a widow, another replied. She could be running from a crime, someone whispered, but no one dared ask her directly. She was kind, but there was something about her eyes, something deep, something that said, don't ask, don't get close. One afternoon, a rude customer shouted at her. His tea was cold. Do you even know how to work? He said loudly. Everyone in the cafe turned to look. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just stood there holding the tray with shaking hands. But one thing changed in her eyes. For 1 second, just 1 second, there was fear. Real, pure fear. And then it was gone. She turned, walked back to the kitchen, and said nothing. Later, the cafe owner asked her gently, Are you okay? She nodded, but her eyes said something else. That night, a neighbor from the lodge saw her standing on the terrace. The wind was strong. Her dupatta flew behind her like a flag. She stood still, looking at the stars. The neighbor walked over and asked, Can't sleep? She didn't answer. Then she said slowly, Some nights are too heavy for sleep. The neighbor looked confused. Heavy, she nodded. Some nights carry memories. And then, without saying more, she walked back into her room. In the town, people started getting curious. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she alone? Nobody had answers, but one thing was clear. She was not just a simple woman. She was hiding something, and the town didn't know. That she wasn't really alone. Someone was watching her from far away. Someone powerful, and soon, he was coming. Sometimes pain doesn't speak, it hides. But even silence can break when the heart becomes too heavy. It had been 1 week since the Silent Woman started working at the cafe. People still didn't know her name. They only called her Madam or Bai. She never corrected them. Maybe she liked it that way. Maybe she didn't. Want anyone to know her real name? Every morning she came early and cleaned the tables. She boiled the tea, made sandwiches, washed dishes, everything quietly. She never complained, never took a break. But something in her face said she was always waiting for something or someone. One day it rained heavily. The streets filled with water. Most customers stayed home, but she came to work, soaking wet, her sari sticking to her skin. The cafe owner, Mr. Sharma, said, "You should have stayed home." "Nobody will come today," she simply replied. "Work helps me forget." He didn't ask what she wanted to forget, but something in her voice made him stop talking. That afternoon, a young man entered the cafe. He wore a leather jacket, had loud headphones around his neck, and walked like he owned the place. He sat down and shouted, "Hey, I want strong coffee, and don't take all day." She nodded and went to the counter. When she brought his coffee, he looked at her and smirked. "You're new. What's your name?" She didn't answer. He laughed. "Silent type, huh? You know, women who act quiet are usually the most interesting." She turned to leave. Suddenly, he grabbed her wrist. "Hey, I'm talking to you." The cafe became silent. Everyone looked. Her hand shook. Her face turned pale. Her eyes filled with fear. Then something strange happened. She whispered one word under her breath. "Please." Not angry, not loud, just scared. Mr. Sharma rushed out from behind the counter. "Leave her hand. This is not that kind of place." The young man laughed and let go. "Relax, uncle, I was just joking." "Get out," Sharma shouted, "and don't come back." The man left, grumbling. The cafe stayed silent. She stood frozen, still holding the tray. Her eyes stared at nothing. Then, slowly, a single tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly and went back into the kitchen. That was the first time anyone had seen her cry. Even if it was just one tear, it was enough to make people wonder. What had happened to her? Why was she so afraid? What kind of past left someone so broken? Later that day, Sharma knocked on the kitchen door. She was sitting on a small stool, quietly peeling potatoes. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded, not looking up. "You can take the day off if you want." She shook her head. "Work keeps my mind busy." He paused, then asked gently, "Is someone after you?" She looked up at him for a moment, her eyes filled with something between pain and warning. "Not anymore," she said. Then she went back to peeling potatoes. That night, back at the guest house, she opened her small bag again. Inside was the same old photo, the army man and the little girl. But this time there was something else, a small folded paper. She opened it slowly. It was a letter, written in perfect handwriting. "Stay low. Don't use your real name. I'm watching from a distance. You are not alone. A." She smiled softly. For the first time in days, then she folded the paper and put it back. Somewhere, far away, in a dark control room, a man stared at several screens. One showed the small cafe. One showed the guest house. One showed the street outside. He wore a military uniform, his face serious and calm. A junior officer came in. "Sir, do you want us to make contact?" The man shook his head. "No, not yet. Let her play the role. They need to believe she's alone." "But, sir," the junior asked, "isn't it dangerous?" The man looked at the screen, where the silent woman was now closing her guest house window. "She's stronger than she looks," he said quietly. Then he turned off the lights. Sometimes, curiosity is more dangerous than silence. Meena lived too, rooms away from the silent woman in Shanti Lodge. She was a school teacher in her 30s, loved to read mystery novels, and had a sharp eye for strange behavior. At first, she didn't notice the new woman much. Many travelers came and went from the lodge. Some stayed a few days, some a few months. But this one, she was different. She never talked to anyone, never laughed, never used her phone. Mina watched her every morning, leaving for the cafe and returning at the same time every evening. No visitors, no calls, no noise. Too quiet, too perfect. One night, Mina was sitting on the balcony reading her novel. The lights in the silent woman's room were off, but the window was open. Mina could see her silhouette sitting on the bed, still, like a statue. Then, suddenly, the woman got up, turned on a small table lamp, and pulled something from her bag. Mina leaned forward. It looked like files. She squinted her eyes. Not books, not papers, military files. They had bold stamps on them, classified and top secret. Mina's heart skipped a beat. Why would a simple cafe worker carry such files? She kept watching as the woman wrote something on a paper and sealed it in an envelope. Then, without checking the time, the woman quietly left her room. Mina's curiosity took over. She tiptoed to the silent woman's door and listened. No sound. She waited 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Then she did something risky. She slowly turned the doorknob. It was unlocked. Inside, the room smelled like sandalwood. Everything was neat. The bed was made. The curtains were drawn halfway. But what caught Mina's eye was the photo on the table, a man in uniform, army officer, standing proudly. And next to him, a younger version of the silent woman. She looked happy back then. On the corner of the photo, something was written. For duty, for family, for love. Mina froze. Who was this man? And what was this woman really doing here? Suddenly, Mina heard footsteps. She rushed out quietly and ran back to her room. The next morning, Mina watched closely. The woman returned from the post office and left again for the cafe. But this time, Mina followed her. She kept her distance, watched her enter the cafe, watched her clean the tables like always. But something didn't feel right. Then Mina noticed something else. A man in a gray jacket sat in the corner of the cafe, not ordering anything, just watching. Half an hour later, another man came in and sat at. In small towns, secrets don't stay hidden for long. But sometimes what people think they know is far from the truth. The next morning, the silent woman walked to the market. She needed some rice, lentils, and soap. Just a normal day, or so, it looked. As she moved between the small shops, buying what she needed, eyes followed her. People didn't look directly, but she could feel them. Watching, whispering. She heard her name. Well, not her real name. She didn't tell anyone her real name. But now, people were giving her one anyway. The mystery woman. Near the fruit. Stall, 2 women spoke in low voices. I heard she was in jail before coming here, one said. No, my cousin told me she was once rich. Now she's hiding from someone, the other replied. Someone said she carries a gun. The woman stood nearby, choosing bananas, acting like she didn't hear anything. But inside, her heart was beating fast, not with fear, with sadness. Why do people always turn silence into stories? She paid for the bananas and walked away quickly. But behind her, the gossip didn't stop. It grew. By afternoon, the whole market was buzzing. Don't let your kids near her. She might be a spy. She's not normal. Even the cafe started to feel different. Mr. Sharma, the owner, gave her a strange look when she arrived. She noticed the staff didn't talk to her much. Some didn't even say hello. Even the regular customers were quiet when she passed their tables. She wasn't just the silent woman anymore. She was the suspicious woman. During lunch break, she sat behind the cafe in the small storage area. Alone, as always. She took out the same old photo, the man in the army uniform holding the baby girl. She touched it gently and whispered, How much longer? Suddenly she heard something. A voice. Low. Careful. Right outside the door. She's not from around here, the voice said. You know what I heard? Someone important is protecting her, but why? Maybe she's bait, another voice replied. She's waiting for someone or something. Her hand froze on the photo. Bait? She quickly stood up and opened the door. No one was there, just silence and shadows. That night, at Shanti Lodge, Meena knocked on her door. I brought food, Meena said, holding a tiffin box. The woman hesitated. Why? Meena smiled. Because you haven't eaten all day, and I don't believe gossip. They sat together on the floor, eating quietly. After a few minutes, Meena asked, Who are you really? The woman paused, then looked at her calmly. I can't say. Not yet. Meena nodded. Okay. Then she asked, Are you in danger? The woman looked down at her hands. Not me, but someone else might be. That's why I'm here. Who? She didn't answer, but Meena understood. As Meena left, she noticed something under the woman's bed. A pair of army boots, not dusty, not old, clean, polished, fresh. Later that night, something strange happened. A man tried to follow the silent woman from the cafe to the lodge. He stayed far behind, dressed like a delivery boy. But before he reached the gate of Shanti Lodge, he suddenly stopped. A black bike appeared from the shadows and blocked his path. The rider didn't speak. He just lifted his helmet slightly, just enough for the man to see his eyes. Cold, sharp, trained. The man turned and ran. The biker waited a few seconds, then drove off without a word. From her window above, the silent woman watched it all and smiled, just a little, because she knew she was not alone. Far away, in a hidden base, the high-ranking officer looked at the screen. His wife was safe for now, but the trap was working. The enemy was getting close. His assistant asked, Sir, should we bring her back now? He shook his head. Not yet. Let them believe she's weak. Let them make a move. But, sir, it's dangerous. She can handle it, he said with pride. She's not just a soldier's wife. She's a fighter. She came in silence. But the truth she carried was louder than anything this town had ever heard. It had been almost a month since the silent woman came to the small town. By now, most people either feared her or avoided her. But the truth was, no one really knew her. Not her name, not her past, not her pain, except for one person. And he was getting closer. That morning, Meena walked into the cafe holding a newspaper in her hand. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. She placed the paper on the counter in front of Mr. Sharma and pointed at a photo on the third page. There, printed in black and white, was the silent woman's face. Wife of missing army officer seen in small town? Sharma looked at the photo, then at the silent woman who was cleaning a table nearby. It's her, Meena whispered. Same eyes, same face. Sharma didn't speak. The headline shook him. All this time, he thought she was just a woman hiding from a personal tragedy. But now, this was something else. The news spread fast. By noon, everyone in town had seen the photo. Some felt sorry, others felt suspicious. How did she end up here? Wasn't her husband declared dead? Then why are army men watching this place? The questions came fast, but no answers followed. That evening, the silent woman returned to her room at Shanti Lodge and found an envelope under her door. She opened it slowly. Inside was a note. They know, but we're watching. Stay calm. Stay ready. A. She folded the paper and placed it in her bag next to the photo. Then she looked in the mirror. And for the first time in a long time, she spoke to her reflection. I'm not hiding anymore. That night. She walked through the market with her head high. The same people who whispered before were now silent when she passed. She stopped in front of a public board where the newspaper had been posted. She looked at her own photo and smiled faintly. Then she took a pen from her bag and wrote just 2 words across the article. Still standing. Meanwhile, a black SUV arrived at the edge of town. Inside was a man in a gray suit and dark sunglasses. He showed a military ID at a checkpoint, then entered a restricted zone near the forest. In a hidden cabin, the high-ranking officer waited. The man entered and saluted. "Sir," he said, "she's been exposed. Locals know who she is." The officer nodded. That was expected. "But sir," the agent added, "if the enemy finds out, they already have," the officer interrupted. "They're watching her, just like we're watching them." The agent frowned. "Then why not pull her out?" The officer stood and looked at a screen showing the cafe. "Because she's not bait," he said firmly. "She's the signal." Back in town, the silent woman opened a small metal box under her bed. Inside was a badge, old, rusted, but powerful. Lieutenant Aisha. Khan, Intelligence Wing. She stared at it for a moment, then placed it on the table beside her. For years, she had hidden it, hidden who she was. Not anymore. She was more than a soldier's wife. She was a trained intelligence officer, and the mission had just begun. That night, Mina visited again. "I saw the news," she said softly. Aisha nodded. "So did everyone." Mina hesitated, then asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" Aisha looked into her eyes. "Would you have believed me if I had?" Mina didn't answer. Aisha smiled gently. "You trusted me anyway." That was enough. But outside, danger was already moving. A stranger in a black jacket made a phone call near the cafe. "She's one of them," he whispered. "She's armed, and she's not alone." The voice on the other side replied, "Good. That means she's important. We move tomorrow." Then the line went dead. In the quiet of her room, Aisha sat with her back straight and eyes open. She knew. The real game was about to begin. She came to hide, but stayed to fight. And now the enemy was walking right into her hands. It was early. Morning. The town was quiet, the sky still painted in soft shades of gray and blue. Inside her small room at Shanti Lodge, Aisha Khan sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, breathing steady. She wasn't praying. She was preparing, because today was the day everything changed. Across town, a black car entered silently. Inside were 2 men, both wearing plain clothes, but their eyes were sharp and their hands rested near hidden weapons. One of them opened a file. Aisha Khan, ex-intelligence wing, wife of Colonel Arman Khan, presumed dead until now. "Fiao," other smirked. "So she's not just a widow, she's bait." "No," the first one said, closing the file. "She's the problem, and today we solve it." At the cafe, Mina sat at a corner table, pretending to read a book, but her eyes followed every customer who walked in. Under the table, she had a small earpiece. It buzzed gently with a coded signal. She tapped it once. "They're coming." Aisha entered the cafe at 10 a.m. like always, her steps calm, her face quiet. But inside, her mind was on fire. She noticed them right away. 2 men in separate corners, one fake tourist, one fake delivery guy. Their eyes scanned her movements. Their hands too still, their drinks untouched. She turned to Mr. Sharma and gave him a nod. He pressed a button under the counter. 10 seconds later, 2 plainclothes officers entered the shop next door. 15 seconds later, a hidden camera turned on, watching the cafe from across the street. 20 seconds later, Colonel Armand Khan watched the live feed from a military van parked at the edge of the town. He whispered, "It's time." Aisha walked to the back room of the cafe and picked up a tray. She stepped out and approached the first man's table. "Tea, sir?" she asked. He didn't look up. "No, thank you." Her eyes met his for just 1 second, enough to confirm he was armed. She turned and walked to the second table. Before she could speak, he said, "We know who you are." Aisha didn't smile. "Then you know what I'm capable of." The man looked around and whispered, "You're alone." She leaned closer and whispered back, "No, I never was." Suddenly, the door of the cafe burst open. 4 armed officers entered, guns drawn but hidden under coats. The 2 men jumped up from their chairs, but it was too late. The next morning, the town woke up to something new. For the first time in weeks, the silent woman was not silent anymore. People now knew her name, Aisha Khan. They knew her face, her story, her mission, and still, they didn't know everything, because her strength didn't come from her badge or her husband's rank. It came from her will, unshaken, unbroken. At the cafe, Mr. Sharma greeted her with a warm smile. "Madam," he said politely. She shook her head gently. "Aisha is fine." People stared less now, not with suspicion, but with respect. Even the children waved at her as she passed. She smiled back. It felt strange, but good. In the market, Mina walked, beside her holding a basket. "You know," Mina said, "for someone who came to hide, you changed everything." Aisha looked at the sky. "Sometimes hiding brings you closer to your purpose." "What will you do now?" Aisha didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "I'll wait. The fight isn't over, I know it." At the army base nearby, Colonel Armand stood with his team. A map lay across the table. Red circles, dotted lines, names. "The men we caught were just messengers," he said. "The real enemy is still out there," a young officer asked. "And Aisha, sir?" He paused. "She's the reason we're ready," he said firmly. "She's not the backup, she's the signal." That night, Aisha sat alone in her room reading a letter. It was from the Army headquarters. "You are hereby reinstated in your role as Special Intelligence Officer, effective immediately." She folded the letter and placed it beside her photo. One of her Armand and their daughter, she whispered, "For her, always." But just as peace returned, a new threat rose. Late at night, a small explosion shook the storage area behind the cafe. No one was hurt. But it was a warning. Police and army teams rushed to the scene. Armand stood near the blast site with Aisha. "They're testing us," he said. She nodded. "Then let's show them what we've learned." The very next day, a press conference was held in the town hall. Aisha stood at the front with Colonel Armand and the local police chief. Reporters filled the room. Flashes, microphones, questions. A journalist asked, "Mrs. Khan, what do you say to those who think women should stay quiet, stay hidden during danger?" Aisha smiled softly. "Strength is not loud. It doesn't wear a uniform or carry a gun. Strength is doing the right thing even when no one sees you, even when everyone doubts you." There was silence in the room. Then came claps, real, loud, honest. After the event, she walked out of the building and found a young girl standing near the gate. The girl had a notebook and shy eyes. "Can I ask something?" the girl said. "Of course." "Are you afraid?" Aisha knelt down to her level and answered, "Yes, every day." "Then how do you still do all this?" Aisha gently touched the girl's hand and said, "Because fear tells me what matters most." Days passed. The town slowly healed. But the woman once known only as the Silent One had become something greater, a symbol, a protector, a reminder that true power is not in how loud you speak, but in how firmly you stand when others want you to fall. One evening, as Aisha and Arman watched the sun go down from the rooftop, she whispered, "I never thought I'd come back to this life." Arman smiled. "The world needs people like you, and our daughter would be proud." Aisha looked at him. "No," she said, "she is proud. I can feel it." He nodded, and together they watched the sky change its colors: strong, quiet, ready.